horrified the country. PC Andrew Harper was responding to a suspected burglary when he fell beneath a vehicle and was dragged along the road. Just 4 weeks earlier, he'd married his wife, Lissie.
Well, 3 teenagers were convicted of PC Harper's manslaughter in July, but Lissie says the verdict and the sentences were no justice, and she's now campaigning for a mandatory minimum term for anyone convicted of murdering emergency workers. And Lissie joins us now from Oxfordshire. Well, Lissie, thank you so much for joining us this morning. I was away when this furore erupted, and I've got to say I was completely sickened by all of it, and not least the scornful way that these scumbags have behaved, rubbing salt into your terrible wounds here on this case. Tell us what you would like to see now happen.
Basically, with Harper's Law, I want to create a brand new law that sees our emergency services workers protected for the job that they do. You know, they go out every day and put themselves in harm's way. And we don't really offer them the protection that they need. This is kind of the only thing that we can offer them. You know, possibly a deterrent, but also, you know, some form of justice should the worst happen to them.
Lissie, it must be so painful for you not only to lose your husband, your new husband. You'd only been married a couple of weeks. You hadn't even gone on your honeymoon, had you? But also to feel that justice was not done for his death. That must be something that makes his loss so much more unbearable for you a year on.
Yeah, losing someone in that way, you can never prepare yourself for. And just dealing with the grief is a tremendous effort. So when it comes to the court case, you do just think, well, you know, this is going to be hard, but we'll get through it. And at the end of it, Andrew will have some justice. And for that not to happen is heartbreaking. And I felt this an overwhelming sense of disappointment for him because I thought that he'd been totally let down. And, you know, that's what brings me to creating this new law, like something to make a change that we all can see really needs to happen.
I think it's incredibly courageous what you're doing. It's had the support of 600,000 people already online, and that number's rising fast. But how are you doing on a human, personal level? You know, you were really at the first flush of this wonderful love story, and it got snuffed away from you in these despicable circumstances. And now you've had another slap in the teeth with this verdict. How are you doing?
That's a good question. I'm focusing. I think I've got to a certain point now that it's been a year, not that I, you know, can really believe that. But this has given me something that maybe I can have some control over. You know, I have an immense amount of support, and that's what's, you know, really gotten me through this time. But everything in my life is different now, and I've got to find a new purpose, I suppose. You know, Andrew was my whole life.
I was going to say, Andrew was an absolute hero, of course. But he sent you this incredibly touching message when you got married. And it just said, life is slippery. Here, take my hand. And he sent it to you on the morning of your wedding to mark the commitment. I mean, obviously, neither of you could have ever imagined in your worst nightmares just how slippery life was going to get. But when you've seen, Lissie, the outpouring of support for Andrew and for his service to his country, has that been a comfort to you?
Absolutely. I think that note that he wrote me just describes him to a T, really. He always wanted to look after people and to protect them, and that's what he did in his normal life and in his work life. You know, our protectors are there to protect us ultimately, and that's what he did all the time. So yeah, the support that has been shown for him is amazing, and I think it's about time that we all really appreciated what our emergency services do. So yeah, amazing support.
How difficult is it for you that one of those held responsible for his death is applying for permission to appeal against his 16-year prison sentence, and the two others have lodged applications seeking permission to challenge their convictions and their prison sentences?
I mean, I'm not overly surprised, but I am pretty appalled that these people, you know, having shown no remorse throughout the whole trial, now think that it's within their right to appeal that. You know, already the sentences are far too lenient, and they think, well, you know, let's give it a go, let's see if we can get off, and that feels just totally wrong to me. Hence why this campaign is so important.
The lack of remorse is just beyond contempt, isn't it? The fact that they've not even had the good grace to acknowledge the consequences of their appalling actions. I don't care how old they are. They're old enough to know right from wrong. They're old enough to know that somebody died. They're old enough to realise the appalling impact it's had on you and your family and Andrew's family and your friends, everyone who knows you, and yet not an ounce of remorse. They just don't care.
Yeah, and that was evident throughout the whole trial, the whole year, actually. And you know, I think people like this, they don't see what they've done, and they'll carry on in that same way. And I think that's part of why, you know, there isn't a deterrent for these people. They think they can go out and commit crime and even take people's lives, and that's acceptable. And it's just not to, you know, the rest of us. We're disgusted by that sort of behaviour.
Well, Lissie, you've shown extraordinary dignity and grace and courage, and I think you've inspired so many people with the way that you've handled this, despite repeated appalling things happening, not least the lack of justice at the end of it all. I wish you all the best of luck with your campaign. I think it's an excellent campaign. But I think on behalf of our viewers, we're getting an amazing reaction to the interview already. They just want you to know that they're all with you, and they feel very inspired by the strength that you somehow found throughout this process. And I think we all feel that. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Toughest
and
of circumstances.
Keep fighting for justice, and I think you'll get there. I think you've got the determination and the spirit, and I think Andrew will be very proud of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for sharing your time with us, Lissie.
It's a fitting legacy.
All the very best to you.
Best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thanks.
And Lissie Harper will be meeting the Home Secretary tomorrow.
It's such a disgusting story.
It is.
I mean, these little scum think they can do that and then show no remorse. They don't care. They've got legal aid, hundreds of thousands of pounds, your money. I mean, the world's gone mad, isn't it?